Hello, my name is Marcus. Today I want to tell you a story about the sea, a silent ship, and a journey that begins without a plan. It's a story about listening, patience, and finding your way when everything seems too fast. Sit back and let the story guide you where you need to go. The ship that waited for no one. Part 1. The map that shouldn't exist. The port city was already asleep when Thomas reached the harbor. The wooden quays were quiet, and the air smelled of salt, old ropes, and the sea. Lamps burned quietly along the pier, their light moving slowly with the wind. Thomas hadn't planned to come here that night. He was tired, and his head was full of thoughts he couldn't stop. Learning English was harder than he expected. Every lesson seemed fast. Every voice was rushed. He often wondered if he was simply made for languages. He walked without a plan, his hands in his coat pockets, listening to the roar of the water. Ships lay in the darkness like sleeping animals. Some were large, others broken, and still others looked as if they hadn't moved for years. Then Thomas noticed one ship that seemed different. It wasn't the largest ship, nor the newest, but it looked ready, clean, waiting. The ship didn't have a name written on its side. That was strange. Every ship had a name. Thomas walked closer. The wood was old but strong, and the ropes were carefully knotted. A single lantern hung at the entrance, glowing softly. On the ground, near the ship, Thomas saw something unexpected. A sheet of paper, folded, old. He slowly picked it up. It was a map. The paper was rough and dry. The lines were hand-drawn. In the center was an island marked with a simple symbol. Below it, in carefully written letters, was the sentence, "Only those who listen will arrive." Thomas frowned. He didn't understand everything, but he understood enough. The words stuck in his mind. He looked around. The harbor was empty. No guards, no sailors, just him, the ship, and the sound of the sea. He told himself it was foolish. He should go home. But his feet wouldn't move. Instead, he stepped aboard. The deck creaked under his weight, but he didn't feel unsafe. He felt welcome, as if it had been waiting for him. As soon as both his feet touched the deck, the lantern brightened slightly, as if the ship had noticed him. Thomas moved forward. There was no crew. There was no captain, but the ship began to move. Slowly, silently, he pulled away from the dock. Thomas threw himself onto the side, his heart pounding, but the harbor was already drifting away. Panic rose in his chest. He opened his mouth to scream, but no sound came out. The sea was calm. The ship moved smoothly, as if guided by an invisible hand. Then he heard a voice. Not loud, not close. A voice carried on the wind. It spoke slowly, clearly, and patiently. It told a story of the sea, of journeys, of people searching for something they already carried within themselves. Thomas didn't understand every word, but he understood the feeling. The voice took its time. It repeated important thoughts. It allowed for silence between sentences. Thomas sat on the deck. His fears slowly faded. He listened as the ship sailed into the darkness, toward the island on the map. Part 2. The Island of Slow Time. The ship reached the island at dawn. Soft light touched the water, and the sky slowly changed from dark blue to warm gold. Thomas stood at the bow of the ship, watching the approaching land. The island was green and silent. No tall buildings, no smoke, just trees, rocks, and a long beach. When the ship stopped, Thomas stepped onto the sand. The moment his feet touched ground, the ship drifted away again, slowly heading out to sea. Thomas felt a brief moment of fear, but it quickly passed. He wasn't alone. The island seemed alive, peaceful, and aware of his presence. As he walked inland, he noticed something strange. Time felt different here. The wind moved slowly. The leaves fell gently. Even his thoughts felt lighter. He heard the voice again, not from the sky this time, but from all around him. It told a story about pirates who were not chasing gold, but understanding. Pirates who learned to listen before they spoke. Pirates who survived not because they were fast, but because they were patient. Thomas followed a narrow path through the trees. Along the path, he saw signs carved into stone. Simple sentences, easy words. They repeated ideas he had already heard. Listen first. The sea teaches slowly. Understanding comes with time. He reached a small village. Wooden houses stood in a circle, and in the center, a fire burned quietly. People sat nearby. They looked like sailors, but calmer, older, wiser. One of them stood and greeted Thomas with a nod. He spoke in slow English. Very slow. Thomas understood him. The man explained that this island was for travelers who were tired of rushing. People came here when the world felt too loud. When learning felt painful, they stayed, listened, and left when they were ready. Thomas stayed on the island. He listened to stories every day. Stories about storms. Stories about lost ships. Stories about mistakes and second chances. The language was simple. The rhythm was slow. Slowly, without effort, Thomas began to understand more. He spoke sometimes. Short sentences. No one corrected him harshly. No one laughed. One evening, the man told Thomas something important. He said the island did not keep people forever. Everyone left when they understood the real lesson. The lesson was not about language. It was about trust. That night, Thomas looked at the sea and felt ready. Part 3. The Captain You Become. In the morning, the ship returned. It waited at the shore, silent and patient. Thomas stepped aboard without fear. This time, the deck felt familiar. The lantern glowed warmly. As the ship moved, the voice returned, but it was quieter now, as if it were becoming part of Thomas himself. The journey back felt shorter. Thomas listened, but now he also noticed his thoughts. He understood the stories more clearly. He did not translate. He did not panic when he missed a word. He trusted the process. When the ship reached the harbor again, the city was awake. People moved quickly. Voices overlapped. The ship stopped, and Thomas stepped onto the dock. When he turned around, the ship was already gone. Life continued. Thomas returned to his daily routine. But something had changed. He listened to English differently now. He chose slow voices, clear stories. He stopped forcing himself to understand everything. And slowly, he became confident. Weeks later, at a cafe, he spoke English with a stranger. The conversation was simple. It was not perfect, but it was real. Thomas smiled. He understood now. He had not found a magical ship. He had learned how to listen, and that was the greatest treasure of all. This brings our story to a close. Thank you for choosing to spend this time listening and following the journey until the end. I invite you to continue with the next story on PUKB.English, where another carefully told narrative is ready for you to discover. Thank you for listening, and I invite you to the next interesting story. Bye.